Kingston Harbor, the site where Chinese indentured laborers landed in 1853. The end of the slave trade in 1834 brought problems for the English plantation owners. They were now outnumbered 40-1 and were not about to arm the freed Negroes and blacks with machetes for fear of revolt because of the way they were treated. Ex-slaves were not interested in working on the plantations. They were now free. The plantation owners faced a dilemma. Workers were needed to save their declining sugar plantations, the main source of wealth for Europe, particularly Britain. Efforts to recruit workers in Europe were unsuccessful. Encouraged by the colonial government of the time, the plantation owners turned to China.
They didn't have anybody to work the fields, so they had to bring in laborers to do this. The British obviously already had a presence in India, already had a presence in China, so they started recruiting peasants from these areas. And in China during that time also there was a lot of starvation. So anything outside of China was a great opportunity.
The Chinese were seen as less hostile, pliable, and hardworking. Thus began the Chinese indentured labor experience, or contract workers. The first large group of 267 Chinese Hakka immigrants destined for indentureship came via Hong Kong on July 30, 1854. Later that year, 205 more Hakka workers arrived here from Panama, where they were fleeing yellow fever.
There was only one thing equal between the Americans and the massive black labor force: the possibility that tropical diseases would claim their lives.
On arrival, they were taken to Spanish Town Prison to be sorted. Soon after, they would be on their way by horse-driven carts to their destination. Many were already ill on arrival and were sent to hospital in Kingston, where they eventually died. Less than 50 of this first 500 immigrants survived. Soon many Chinese indentured laborers realized that life in Jamaica was going to be very, very difficult. Nothing like the advertisements they had seen in China. Their world was about to be turned upside down. They had arrived into a system that had been embedded in slavery for 300 years, a system that did not know how to treat workers in a humane way. They were working on plantations that had only known one method of employment, which was brutality. Working conditions were brutal. The heat, the long hours in the cane fields, and the poor rations of food soon took its toll. Living conditions were harsh as they moved into recently vacated slave huts. Contract workers were beaten repeatedly for disobeying working conditions, for leaving the plantation, and for requesting to return to China. Many were broken. Unable to cope, many gave up and simply wandered the streets. Soon many turned to drinking and found themselves in debt. Unable to pay, they sold themselves to their plantation owners for the next few years. Many returned home to China, broke and unwell. Those that stuck it out and were freed after their period of indentureship opened small shops. Soon the island was littered with these little shacks. And so these new Chinese Jamaicans became known as shopkeepers. They tended to live just above the shop they operated.
My father rented a little shop from a black lady next door. We started a little tiny shop where we sold like half pint of gasoline, plums, half a pound of sugar, codfish, and things like that. I remember that very much. You know, I remember all those little details when I was younger. A very modest little shop.
They worked hard and over time built a life for their families. The Chinese shops, as Jamaicans called them, thrived. Communities depended on them for foodstuff and house supplies, and Mr. Chin would always go the extra mile to cater to their needs.
When I was growing up, a lot of Jamaican persons from the community would come and they would ask my grandfather for medicine. He knew about Chinese medicine. Homemade remedies was what he would give to persons for like arthritis pain and stuff, my grandfather would catch snakes and stuff like that and put them in a bottle with rum, and he'd give it to them when they would come for different ailments.
Today, the Chinese Jamaican community is well respected. They have left an indelible mark in many spheres of Jamaican life and contributed to building this island nation.
Sacrifice your life for the poor, no matter what it costs you. Out of that has emerged missionaries of the poor.
You have to have a passion. You have to have a passion. You have to be passionate about what you do.
It was amazing growing up in such a musical family, and I think that's what really fueled the fire for us.
What reggae music is an expression, right? Whichever way you're feeling or a message that you're trying to relay, it's coming from the heart.
I think the Chinese heritage is a big part of our Jamaican culture now. It's out of many one people now. Seeing that most of us are actually mixed now, we identify with Chinese people now, Chinese food, all that kind of thing. It's a big part of our culture here in Jamaica at this point in time.
But do we know their story and how they came to live in a land so far away? Although rarely discussed, memories of the traumatic indentured period remain. Who were these Chinese immigrants? Why did they come to Jamaica, an alien world compared to China? What did they expect? What skills and customs did they bring? How would they cope in the new world? How were they going to integrate into a new society, a new culture, a new language? How did they overcome? This documentary, Out of Many One People, the Chinese Community, will take you on a captivating journey of the Chinese experience in Jamaica.